We are the Unitarian Universalist Church in Meriden and the Mattatuck Unitarian Universalist Society, working together to advance our shared values of spiritual growth and advancing the cause of social justice in a community of trust and mutuality. Good morning. I'm Jeff May, your host and producer this morning, as we welcome our very special guest and worship leader, Matt Meyer. Matt is a musician and community organizer who has led hundreds of services for UU congregations across the country. He has a degree in hand drumming and serves as the Director of Community Life for Sanctuary Boston. There's a lot going on right now, so keep up with what's happening by visiting our websites and our Facebook pages frequently, and please sign up for our weekly email newsletters. Our live streaming services, as well as our library of past services, are also available on the Meriden YouTube channel at go.uumeriden.org/services. Right after this service, there will be coffee hours for each congregation in Zoom. We'll give you the sign-in information at the end of the service on the screen and on our social media chat windows. Even though our current public health emergency prevents us from being together in our worship spaces, we make this time sacred, each in our own spaces, and yet together in spirit. Let's take a moment to quiet our minds and center ourselves as we join together in this act of worship this morning.
We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing. Humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time, we come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment.
I'd like to share a story with you all this morning. This is a story about a young girl named Miriam. Now, Miriam was just about to enter the 4th grade, and she was thrilled, because that was the year in her school when every student got to learn an instrument and play in the school orchestra. And Miriam loved music. So on the first day of class, she showed up to the orchestra room extra early. She walked in and she looked around at all of the wonderful instruments. There was the giant bass drum, the beautiful violins, shiny brass trumpets. She wondered which instrument she would get to play in the orchestra. She saw her teacher, Miss Berman, there, and she said, "Here I am. What instrument do you need me to play in the orchestra?" Miss Berman looked at her. "Miriam, right? I think I've got just the right instrument for you." And she disappeared a moment later into her office and came out again with a tambourine. "A tambourine?" Miriam said. Well, is that even an instrument? Well, of course, said Miss Berman. Every great orchestra needs a great tambourine player, and you are our tambourine player. Well, Miriam took the tambourine, but for the whole rehearsal, all day long, she ended up just playing the same rhythm over and over. It went like this. Dot, da, da, dot, dot, dot. Can you all try that? Dot, da, da, dot, dot, dot. And the next day, the whole day, through the whole rehearsal, she just played that same rhythm over and over again. It went dot, 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 dot. And then Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, the whole rest of the week, it was that same rhythm over and over and over. It went dot, 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 dot. And you might guess Miriam was not any more excited about the tambourine at the end of the week than she had been at the beginning. So that Sunday when she went to church with her family, she was feeling pretty sad about it. She sat down in her Sunday school class, and her teacher Mahesh noticed that she was looking down. He asked her about it. She said, well, I was so excited to learn an instrument and play in the school orchestra, but I ended up with the tambourine, and I just play the same rhythm all week long. It goes, dot, 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 dot. The tambourine, Mahesh said. He said, did you know that where my family is from in southern India, we call it a kanjira? Can you say that? Kanjira. He said, people spend their whole lives learning to play the kanjira. It's a beautiful and complicated instrument. And every sound that you can make on the kanjira, you can also sing. And so people put the sounds, the rhythms of the kanjira together to make, well, to make poetry out of the rhythms of it. People write whole books of the poetry of the kanjira. Where I come from, he said, the tambourine is an instrument for creating poetry and, well, beauty in the world. Poetry and beauty, Miriam said. Can you all say poetry and beauty? Well, that doesn't sound so bad. After church, all the adults were running around at coffee hour, but Miriam sat by herself, and a family friend came to join her. Anna sat with her, and Anna remembered. She said, this was the week you were going to begin the 4th grade and play in the school orchestra. How's it going? Well, Miriam said, I ended up with the tambourine, and I just play the same rhythm all week long. It goes, dot, 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 dot. The tambourine, Anna said. She said, did you know that where my family is from in Brazil, we call it a pandeiro? Can you say pandeiro? She said people have been playing the pandeiro for generations in Brazil. And in fact, she said when my ancestors were brought to Brazil as enslaved people, they would play the pandeiro as a way to bring the community together, to sing and dance and take care of each other even when times were so difficult. And they would even use the music of the pandeiro to secretly practice martial arts to protect themselves against the people that held them as slaves. Well, where I come from, the tambourine is an instrument for creating community and safety. Safety and community, Miriam said. Can you all say safety and community? Well, that doesn't sound so bad. So Miriam was thinking about all of this when she went back to school the next day. She saw her teacher, Ms. Berman, there, and she told her about the kanjira and the pandeiro, about poetry and beauty and safety and community. But she said, I don't know what any of that has to do with me. I'm still playing the same rhythm all week long that goes dot, 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 dot. Well, Ms. Berman said. She said, Miriam, do you know where your name comes from? Well, of course. From my parents. Well, right, said Miss Berman, but do you know who Miriam was? She said, in your family's history, there's a story of the ancient Israelites fleeing slavery in Egypt to travel towards freedom. And while they were making their way on their path to freedom, when they were making that dangerous journey, they stopped to celebrate that they were on their way to a better place. And it was a woman named Miriam who got that party started with her tambourine. And women like Miriam in ancient Israel and all over the Middle East would play the tambourine for weddings and festivals and celebrations. In your family's history, the tambourine was a way of celebrating love and celebrating freedom. Love and freedom, Miriam said. Well, that sounds pretty good. Eventually, Miriam went on to try out some of the other instruments in the orchestra. She played a bit of the bass drum and tried out the violin and played some trumpet, but she always remembered this story of the tambourine. How all around the world, and all throughout history, people had taken the simplest of instruments they had in their hands and found ways to use those tools to shape their community, to create poetry and beauty, safety and community, to celebrate the journey we're all trying to make towards love and freedom. Part of what we do here on Sunday mornings when we gather to worship in whatever ways we gather is not just to come together and remind each other about the values that are most important to us, but to think together and even challenge each other to think of how we can use whatever instruments, whatever tools we have in our hands to shape the world around us, to create the kind of world we want to live in together. May it be so.
Today we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side.
Our opening song this morning is Blessed Motion, written by Annie Zylstra. She was inspired in part by the words of Martin Prechtel, who had survived an earthquake in Guatemala. He spoke of what it was like to have the earth beneath his feet, that which had always been so reliable, so permanent, suddenly in motion. He said the idea, the myth of solid ground is a myth believed by those who live on the earth rather than in it. These days it can feel like the earth beneath us is shifting quickly and in uncertain ways. And so I invite you into the spirit of this song. Please sing along at home. There's a high part and a low part, some call and response. Find whichever part works best for you, or make up some new parts or some new harmonies. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. Now the low part. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves. We'll do that part two more times. In perfect motion, all is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, till I saw the earth in motion, the wind of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, and the wind of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion. I start just about every day with a to-do list written on Post-it notes. Usually it is an overly ambitious to-do list, to be honest. Near the top of that list most days is writing, but it's something I struggle to actually make time for. One of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott, talks about how hard it is, in fact, to just sit down every day and write. She says, "The discouraging voices will hound you. This is all piffle," they will say. And they may be right. What you are doing may just be practice, but that's how you're going to get better. Some of the best writing advice that I ever got was from a teacher who told me, "Don't write, just write what you would write if you were going to write." I haven't written anything since, but I have written a lot about what I would write if I did write. You might call this the practice of practicing. The demons of perfectionism stand in the way of writing, just as they stand in the way of risk-taking in general, which is unfortunate because creating a life for yourself that does not yet exist requires some creative risk-taking. And certainly, being your best self in uncertain and anxious times will require setting aside the discouraging voices that hound us, saying your work is just piffle. When the demons of perfectionism show up like this, I try to practice the practicing of showing up. One of the requirements for all students at Berklee College of Music, where I attended years ago, is 4 semesters of ear training. Learning how to sight sing just by reading notes on a page, or learning how to transcribe music just by listening to a song. Now, when I began college, I knew that there were people who were capable of such magic, but it was certainly some kind of Harry Potter nonsense to me. Like, you may as well ask me to make a feather float above my desk using my conductor's baton. On the first day of ear training class, I remember there was a sort of nervous silence among the new students. Silence, that is, except for one student who was quite loud in his nervousness. He interrupted the teacher in the first few minutes of class to share that he was worried the class would be too advanced for him. He wanted to be clear that he knew, in fact, not a single thing about ear training. The teacher kindly paused his introductions to respond, saying that we had all taken entrance exams and been placed in the appropriate classes, he was sure. The teacher tried to continue, but was interrupted again. "Well," the man responded, "is this the very lowest class? Because I need to be in the very lowest class." Now, our poor teacher looked around the room sheepishly, not really wanting to answer that yes, we were in fact a class of the very most basic students. Well, it is ear training 101, he said, so yes, it is the lowest. There is, I guess, a class for people that have previously failed the 101, but you all are just about the lowest. Now, some of the other students in the class giggled a little at this man's anxieties. I was kind of glad, though, to hear that someone was questioning the absurd notion that sight singing could be taught. I don't know what happened next for that student, but he never came back to our class. Not because anything we did on that first day was in fact too hard for him, but I think he just lacked a belief that improvement was even possible. I kept going, thinking that if others had done this before, it must be possible somehow, and I made a commitment to at least practice the material. I've always remembered that student, though, thinking that he had given up before he even started. It's not just that he didn't try to become a master at ear training, it's that he didn't even try the practicing of it, which always struck me as the real loss. When the discouraging voices hound me, I sometimes think of him and remind myself, maybe for now, this is just practice, because practice is how you are going to get better. This has been a week of uprisings calling for change, calling on those in power, which in some ways is all of us, to play a different role, to learn a new tune, to practice some new skills. Particularly for white people, the call to learn new things and practice new ways of being is strong. This means studying up on the racist history of our country and the racist present of it. It means making time for listening in ways we may have not done before, committing to hard conversations we may not yet have practiced enough. When you see black folks making demands, it is time to practice amplifying those demands by repeating them into the phone with your representatives, calling on your colleagues and families as well. If you inherited wealth that was accumulated in a time of segregation, which is true of all wealth in this country, it is time to practice giving it away. If your muscle memory has been to call the police when something goes wrong, it's time to practice something different, learning new skills for community safety and accountability. I know I won't all of a sudden do all of these things once and for all, but I will practice the doing of them. Musicians know as well as anyone that muscle memory is real, that slow and consistent practicing changes the very structure of our brains, rewiring our circuitry, forging new connections and new possibilities. New connections and new possibilities is something our world sorely needs right now. No one is born a musician, you know. Even songbirds need elder birds to sing to them and teach them the tunes. Practice doesn't make music perfect, but it makes music possible. So let us practice the practicing. Practice won't make the world perfect, but it makes a better world possible. I know I would love to become an expert in justice and compassion when anxiety moves in the air like a storm. I want to be well practiced at creating brave space, even when there is no such thing as safe space. These are daunting tasks, to be sure, and on most days, learning to transcribe a symphony seems more manageable. But that's okay. For now, I don't have to do all of those things. I just need to practice doing what I would do if I were doing them. Beloveds, don't promise to be your best self today. Just be the person you would be if you were practicing being your best self. Don't try to rebuild this new world in the image of love this week. Just practice what you would do if you had committed to such things. You have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. Let us grow together. Let us begin together. and let us practice together. May it be so, and amen.
We pause now for a moment of silent meditation as we reflect on the concerns and sorrows and the hurtings of hearts in our community this morning.
This month, we celebrate Pride, an outcome of the Stonewall riots of June 1969 in New York City, in the midst of civil unrest, global pandemic, and uncertain leadership. While we consider the progress made in LGBTQ rights, we cannot separate those from the human rights of other oppressed people. We are Unitarian Universalists, believers in social justice, advocates for the subjugated, voices for those unheard. The words in our principles, equity and compassion, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, peace, liberty, justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part, call us to act for those whose civil liberties have been denied. If riot is the language of the unheard, may we listen better. When hatred is expressed, may we show our love. When violence is present, let us respond with peace. May it be so.
Good morning. I'm Pinky Chilemi, a member of the Moose congregation. We are generous people, and we need you to live into that generosity. We've made it easy for you to give online, but if you'd like to mail us a check, we will happily and gratefully receive it. If you are not a member of one of our congregations, please give if you can to support the cost of producing the online service. This is a Share the Plate Sunday. It's the first Sunday of the month, and here at Moose, half of the donation will go to the Social Justice Fund. The donation will be used to support causes within the local community and within the larger world. Two of our major goals are to support food security and to prevent income inequality. We're hoping you can give as generously as you can. Our funds are rather depleted, and we'd like to be able to start contributing to those organizations that support our goals. Thank you so much.
Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza, la libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. Listen, my people, we bring the power. La libertad es la única bandera. Liberty is the only flag. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza. La libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle. No human being can ever be illegal. Listen, gente traemos la fuerza, la libertad es la única bandera. Oye, mi gente, traemos la fuerza, la libertad es la única bandera. Listen, my people, my condor, my eagle, no human being can ever be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal. No human being can ever be illegal.
So before we close the service this morning and turn things back over to Matt for some final words and a final postlude, I wanted to bring everyone up to speed on this week's call for racial social justice. And this week it is from the Unitarian Universalist Church in Meriden Social Justice Council. And they ask if you are comfortable being out in public, please join them for the first annual Meriden Justice March and Vigil against police brutality. That's going to be this afternoon at 1 o'clock at the Meriden City Hall, which is at 142 East Main Street in Meriden. The rally starts at 1 on the steps of City Hall, and then afterwards everyone will proceed to the Meriden Green for a vigil in honor of those affected by police brutality. Please remember to bring your own water, wear a mask, and please maintain good social distancing during the event. And finally, one last reminder is next week, Reverend Tony will be back with us leading the service. And the service next week is a flower communion. And if you have flowers, if you've got pictures of yourself in your garden or with your flowers or somewhere else with your family, let's say at a park or something surrounded by flowers, please take those pictures and send them to Reverend Tony, and we'll include them as part of next week's service, which is a celebration of the flower communion, which we're going to do even though we're not able to be actually together and sharing flowers with each other. We'll share flowers online. There's a special address for that to make it easy to remember. Flowers at uucentralct.org. You can send your pictures to that address, and Reverend Tony will have them for the service next week. We signify the close of our time together this morning by extinguishing the chalice we lit as we gathered. Light, being pure energy, never really goes out. It simply extends from this time and place, bringing brightness and warmth wherever it goes. Our gathering today has ended. Let our service begin.
Dear ones, you have a right to start somewhere and continue to grow. Let us grow together. Let us begin together. Let us practice together. Go with love, go in peace, and go and be blessed as you are a blessing to others. Our closing song is Let the Life I Lead Speak for Me. I originally had learned that the song was a traditional folk tune, but it turns out that it was actually adapted from a 70s R&B group, the Consolers. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life life I lead speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the friends I have speak for me. Let the friends I have speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the friends I have speak for me. Let the work I do, let the work I do speak for me. Let the work I do speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the work I do speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the songs I sing speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the songs I sing speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. Let the love I share speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the love I share speak for me. Let the life I lead, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me. When I'm lying in my grave and there's nothing more to say, let the life I lead speak for me. Let the life I lead speak for me.
We are having coffee this morning, but we're going to do it as a joint coffee hour for both congregations, Moose and UUMeriden. There's a special link on your screen to go to our coffee hour, which will begin shortly. It's go.uucentralct.org/coffee67. We will see you there at our coffee hour in just a few minutes.